Satnam, yogis and yoginis, hello and welcome. Welcome to the stream. Today we are going to do a little bit of a different video. And if you have been watching my videos in the past, you will be surprised to see no turban today. What's going on? It's something that I mentioned about this concept of the turban. I mentioned it in the conversation with Ardaas Singh. And it's something that I wanted to talk about for a while. What are we going to do today? We're going to talk about turbans. We're going to talk about my personal journey with turbans. How have I gone from not wearing it to now? What am I going to do with it? And I'm going to talk about the benefits of wearing a turban in detail, in a lot of detail. And I'm going to show how to put on. So I have it here. I'm going to show how to put the turban on. But I want to be able to talk about my experience with turbans first, because, well, I've seen it from the inside, wearing the turban thing, and I want to talk a little bit about that. So it's quite a personal video today. I'm going to talk a lot about my experience and my take on things, on how do I feel about those things, more personal than other videos that I do when I talk about maybe, breathing patterns, and I talk about in general what we understand from yoga about that. Not my personal take or my opinion on that, but I just talk about the teachings. Today it will be much more my experience of that, even though I will also share what the teachings tell us about that. But yes, my journey with turbans started when I first approached Kundalini. When I first approached back to yoga, some of you will know that my parents were yogis, and we practiced yoga since we were very little. There's a picture over there. You don't see it very well, but I have a picture over there, me with 3 or 4 years, and with my father and my sister, and we were doing yoga. My mother was taking the picture. So at some point during my late childhood, starting the adolescence, I went away from everything spiritual. And I went far away, and then I came back. Satnam Andrea Baker, thank you for subscribing. Welcome to the channel. So I went away from anything spiritual, and I was, I didn't believe in God, and I didn't believe in anything spiritual for some time, and I was trying to get away from all these holy people, yeah? And I would see holy people like something negative. And so it was a big surprise in 2001 when I started to have some unusual experiences, let's say, that I could know for sure that they were true, they were happening, and yet they had no explanation from science, from physics. And so, well, if that is true, what else is true? And so I came back to yoga, to the world of yoga. And I wanted to learn everything by myself. I didn't want somebody to be teaching me anything. I've always been wanting to do that, even when I was studying engineering. I would get into a lot of trouble with that, actually, because I would be in my PhD doing, I created a new algorithm to process images and find edges in images, and then do a processing of the image that allows to find certain shapes. And I would spend like 2 weeks working on this algorithm, and I would get a very nice result, and I would show it to my supervisor, and he would say, "That's great, but that already exists," and then I would do some research, and I would find some guy in some corner of the world had already created this algorithm before. And of course, it was already published, so I cannot publish that. But I love the idea of finding something by myself, which is why when I came back to the world of yoga, I had a lot of resistance to actually finding a teacher, and tried reading by myself, reading a lot of spiritual books at that time and experimenting on myself. But eventually I recognized the need to have some guidance. And that was important, because we do need somebody to guide us, because otherwise we are just being guided by ourselves. And when I say ourselves, when we still have a very active ego, the ego is guiding you. So from material ego to spiritual ego, the ego is going to be guiding you if you don't have anyone from the outside that is hopefully calibrating you. So anyway, my first approach was through Mas Murray over there, to mantras and mantra yoga, and reading Yogananda's book. And then I came into contact with who would become my spiritual teacher, Ardaas Singh. and Kundalini yoga. Now, I didn't really like the Kundalini yoga aspect of what he was teaching. Not that I disliked it, but what I really wanted were the numbers. That was what was my calling. And so I would want to do numbers, but then you cannot go and study just numbers. You have to study Kundalini yoga as well, because, even from the very early morning, we would be doing sadhana. And so I learned about this and seeing all these people with turbans around me. And I would feel a rejection to that, because just like I felt a rejection to say the word God before. And it was very hard for me to talk about that. So I had a rejection to turbans for a number of things. One of them is, and I'm not just talking about the community of Shiv Charan Singh, which I really appreciate and I'm part of and I enjoy. But as I would later go and participate into these festivals, these yogic festivals, then I would see a lot of things. And one is that a lot of people utilize these turbans to kind of like virtue signaling, like saying, how holy I am. And they would talk about finding the real self, but utilizing the turbans as a form of decoration to try to become this holy thing. And it's fine because, fake it to make it. But it would also be a lot of ego. And I could see very big turbans. And you know what I mean by big turbans. Really big turbans, like physically, but also showing like a big ego, like my turban is bigger than yours, sort of, kind of. And I really disliked that. And so I felt a rejection towards the concept of wearing the turban, because it would be like, do I pretend now that I'm holy with this turban? And but that's a problem, because the turban has a lot of benefits, which we will talk about today. But I was trying to avoid that because of the image. Now, the image has another consequence. The turban is very associated with Sikhism, particularly the kind of style that you often see in Kundalini yoga. And well, I'm not a Sikh, not in the pure term of the word, like I've never taken vows, and I don't particularly enjoy going to the regular gurudwaras. That's not my thing. I can enjoy it occasionally to go and pray and enjoy the vibration of the Sangat and chant some Waheguru and participate in the kirtans. I enjoy that, but I'm not into the religious aspect. And so wearing the turban, even if I wanted to explore the benefits of it, would put me in a position where I would present myself as a Sikh. And well, the word Sikh is kind of like a seeker of truth, is a disciple of truth. And I am that. I am a seeker, and I'm a disciple of truth. But I didn't want to be associated necessarily with the Sikh tradition, even though, I'm following the code pretty much, because, I don't cut my hair, I have the kara, I wear the turban. I'm not wearing it right now, but you will see me in a minute. And I would be kind of, from the outside, it would look like I am a Sikh, but I didn't feel the alignment with the Sikh Dharma so strongly. I enjoy the stories, I enjoy the tradition, I enjoy the teachings of the gurus. I read the Japji every morning. I feel inspired by all that. But when I have to pray, and I'm kind of connecting with a question from Isabel, she was asking me about praying the other day, about prayer in a comment, in a YouTube comment. When I have to pray, my personal prayer always goes to Ramana Maharshi. Oh, here she is. So now, Isabel, I was just talking about you, about prayer, right? So when I pray to Ramana Maharshi. And occasionally I will pray to Guru Tegh Bahadur or Guru Ramdas or Guru Nanak. But my more heart-to-heart prayer is to Ramana Maharshi. And one thing about him is that he didn't care. Like, he was totally not attached to what's happening in the body. And people would take care of him. I mean, they even had to feed him, because otherwise he would just die. His body would die. Some disciples really like to cut his hair, because that's kind of like the Brahmanic kind of idea. And they would shave his head completely. And then he would stay 1 month, and then after 1 month, he would have this lovely beard that you can see in the picture. And then they would shave him again, and he wouldn't care. He was totally not attached to what's happening in the body. And so the turban has incredible benefits, but also depending on how much you are attached to the body as well. So that's kind of a first conclusion that I would get out of this. Now, in spite of this, if I looked at my teachers, Ardaas Singh is a Sikh, so he definitely is aligned with the Sikh Dharma. And so by being in contact with him, I wanted to experiment and explore. So I explored it with myself. And I will mention later what I did to see if my relationship to the turban. But not only Shiv Charan, if I looked at pictures from Paramahansa Yogananda, in some of them, he is also wearing a turban. You can see it in Vivekananda as well. And even my teacher, Mas Mare, who is British, and he would teach mantra yoga, but the very first course I did with him, he was wearing kind of a turban as well, his own style. So somehow it was like, okay, so people wear turbans. There must be a reason for that. And I mean, they were also not attached to it. Mas Mare, you can see him teaching with that cloth around his head, as much as you can see him without it. Sometimes he wears it, sometimes he doesn't. Yogananda, you will see him sometimes with the turban, especially in formal occasions, when in regular settings, he would not wear it, while Sikhs do wear it all the time. So the concept of the image is something that it was something that I was reflecting upon. And then there's people who will take the turban to the extreme and become fanatics about it. And it becomes like the turban police. And if you are part of the community of the Kundalini Yoga Sangat, they will go and ask, why are you not wearing the turban? And well, if we look, if you are part of the Kundalini Yoga community as taught by Yogi Bhajan, you should check what Yogi Bhajan said about it. And Yogi Bhajan said it was recommended, but in no time said that it was compulsory. In fact, there is a number of times when people ask him to review the guidelines and to say that we had to wear a turban, and he specifically said no. So turban, if you look at the code of excellence of a Kundalini Yoga teacher, you will find that it is only recommended. Recommended for a number of benefits that we will go into it for a minute. However, out of this idea that we want to show who we are, our identity, our yogic identity, and to also tainted by this idea that I am better than others, right? This virtue signaling that I was mentioning before, there is a lot of pressure to wear this turban. And I believe that, yes, turbans should be encouraged to be experimented. If you are a yogi, you should be encouraged to experiment with your body and with the teachings to find out and figure out whether this is for you or not, and to realize the true benefits of any practice and not believe anything that it is said to you. I am very specific about this. Don't believe me in anything I say. Just explore and experiment. Do your own experiments, do your own practices, and have your own feeling about that. So I don't subscribe to this fanaticism and this turban police. And I believe that it is not compulsory. So it's fine if you don't want to wear the turban. Now, having said that, the turban has a lot of benefits. So let's talk about those. The minimum of these benefits is the image. That's probably one of the smallest benefits at all. But it is a benefit in that, so let's explore that. One of the benefits of wearing a turban is that you are kind of wearing a uniform. So wearing a turban is very associated to something spiritual. So when people come to talk to you, they know who they are approaching, and the approach that they will have to you will be a spiritual one. So, if you see a policeman in the street and they are wearing their police uniform, you can recognize them immediately. And if you need help, you have some issue and you need a policeman, you will know how to find one. And the same idea can be applied if you have some spiritual issue and you see a yogic uniform, then you will want to approach that person because they are more likely to have something that is of use to you rather than a policeman, right? If you have a spiritual issue, then you would go to a yogi. So this idea of the uniform is useful. And there is another thing with the wearing a turban, and it's that I think it's partly because of how unusual it is in the West, let's say, but not only, because the turban, you will see, it creates kind of like a cross. I will show you after this talk. I will show you how to put it on. I have it here, and we will do it together. If you want, I can show you how to do it, and then you can get a cloth at home and experiment with me how to do it. And it creates a cross. And if anybody studied art, wherever there is this sign, this symbol, it's like an arrow. So you will see some paintings in, if you look at some old romantic paintings from Italy, and there will be the posture of one girl will be like this, and then you will notice that the elbow is pointing to another element of the painting. So when the brain sees this, the brain looks in that direction. So when you see, and particularly women, because I have a lot of female teachers who come to the trainings, the neckline, especially if I wasn't wearing a t-shirt, this line like this, like many people wear, makes subconsciously the attention of the one who is looking at you to look down. So this neckline is going to make you look down. So if you're a woman and you are teaching, anyone, but especially men who look at you by having this kind of neckline are going to look down to your breasts. So the attention is going to be brought down to the physical body. While if you wear a shawl or you don't see the neckline is broken, like here, and especially if you have a turban that points up, the attention is going to go up. So very, very subconscious, but as someone is looking at you, at your eyes, and with a neckline, the eyes go down and the consciousness goes down to the body, or the turban goes up and the consciousness goes up. So just the presence of the turban is going to help raise the awareness of the person. And it's very subconscious. The people, maybe, I'm saying this now, it's possible that you never heard this before. But if you think about it, it makes sense. You will notice that it makes sense that something pointing up is going to attract the attention to go up. So that's interesting as a part of this uniform and this idea of the image. Well, those are two immediate benefits from wearing the turban, but then there is the actual technology of it. Wearing a turban is like a technology, an ancient technology that has a good number of benefits. And I'm not going to go into some of the benefits which would be very necessary from olden times. If you live in the desert, the turban is going to help you create pockets of air and create a breeze so that it's protecting you from the heat and keeping the sand out of your hair as well. And you will see all tribes in the desert wore turbans. There was also a website, I don't remember now the name, but maybe you can look for it, that it talked about turbans in the cultures around the world. And it talked about how people tie their hair with some cloth, all the way from shamanistic cultures in South America to African tribes in the desert to Asian and even the Chinese. And I remember when I was researching on this, there is even a saying in Spain, in the north, about how when you tie your hair with a cloth, you think much better. Your thoughts are much better. I have it written somewhere, the actual saying. It's an Aragonés. It's un dicho Aragonés, but it's very from the Aragon, from one province. And so talking about, when you tie your hair, because they would do it with a cloth, your thoughts are much more stable. So that's part of the technology, apart from, the sand, which we don't have. We don't live in the desert right here. But this idea that the dicho Aragonés, the pressure of the turban is creating a pressure that concentrates. So this, the level of concentration that you can get in your mind when you wear the turban is increased. And again, don't believe me anything I say. Just experiment it and see for yourself. But I can certainly notice my head much more focused and concentrated when I wear my turban than when it's freed from the turban. This is much more open. And if it's open, it's also more influenceable, yeah? Which is another of the benefits. Apart from the concentration, then the cloth creates a filter, and it's gonna protect you from other fields around us and other thoughts of people that are floating around. It creates like a layer of protection to contain your thoughts within your own field, much more protected, much more filtered. So that's another benefit of that. Now, when you tie your hair, there is a number of benefits that I'm going to mention that come from the fact of just tying the hair. This is called a rishi knot, and is very recommended. And one of the things that it does is when you tie it up in the top, in the Sikh Dharma, they will tie it a bit farther up, more towards here in the men. Generally in yoga, it is recommended a bit farther back, more in the bindu spot. I'm kind of going towards the men, but not so much, not 100% here in the front. I'm more a little bit towards the back. Women always tie it in the back, so that's the same. But tying the hair here helps to gather energy and accumulate it up here, so it raises the energy, especially the Kundalini. Now, I did another video on long hair specifically. It's called The Magnetic Radiance of Long Hair. You can watch it in the channel, and I present some scientific evidence on the importance of long hair. I really enjoy doing that video. It's one of the first ones I did in the channel as well. So if you want to know more about long hair, I recommend to watch that one. So yeah, just gathering the hair here, it's bringing all the energy up, and it's increasing the power of your antenna. And then with the turban around, the antenna is going to get even stronger. So you can, tune in to these subtle frequencies of Guru radio, right? To tune in much better. So you gather energy, you raise the Kundalini, you focus it here, and you tune your antenna to these subtle frequencies. So it's all very important. Then there is another physical element of tying your hair, which is the cloth, which is quite strongly tied. You have to make it strong enough that it creates the effect, but not so much that you end up with a headache. But it creates pressure on the cranium and readjusts the bones, and it's kind of like going to a craniosacral massage, when they give a massage to the bones in your cranium to readjust them. And so it's kind of therapeutic as well, though you have to know how to tie it properly. But it can be quite interesting because there is a reflection in the head of the whole body. So by tying it is like readjusting your whole body by putting the turban in the proper way. So you can see there is a lot of benefits to all this. Now, there's probably more. I'm just not remembering right now. It keeps the head cool in summer and warm in winter. Yeah, it is a very practical thing, but it's also true. You can check. There's okay. To me, so what I did is, as I started teaching Kundalini Yoga, I said, well, my teacher says about the importance of the turban, and so I'm going to wear it. And it's part of the code of conduct. It doesn't say you have to wear it, but it's highly recommended. And so I would wear it, and it took me a long time to learn how to put it on, also because I was never really taught properly how to do it. That's also why I'm doing this video, to show what I learned about how to tie a turban. But so sometimes it would take me 30 or 40 minutes to put it on before a yoga class, which is a long time. It would be like a whole kriya by itself. I remember some days being so frustrated I ended up crying in the not the bathroom, but the changing rooms, yeah? Preparing to 30 minutes with the arms up, trying to tie the hair and the turban, and it wasn't working. And partly the reason is because I have a lot of hair, You cannot really see it here, but there's a lot of hair, and I just didn't know how to tie it properly. So it was very, very frustrating. But that was also part of the benefit I was getting to it. It was a preparation for teaching. It was like, putting the turban on is like preparing myself up for the moment of going and starting teaching. But for me, more than all these benefits that I mentioned, more than all of this, the benefit that I enjoyed the most, or suffered the most, was actually wearing the turban in public. Because I was, when I was young, I was very, very unsure of myself, my self-image, and I had a lot of, insecurities and feelings of shame about myself. And especially when I was a kid, I went through a lot of bullying when I was young. And so when I was an adult and I had to go teach, and I had to go from one yoga class to another yoga class, and of course, I wouldn't put the turban on and remove it because it was so much work. So I would just leave it on. And for a good number of years, something like 10 years, I was teaching right next to a school. And I was teaching at 8 o'clock, which is when the boys and girls were coming into school. So I was passing in front of the school exactly the time that the kids were going in. And I had so much fear of kids because of the bullying that I went through. And that was incredible. Those 10 years, every time I would pass in front of the school, they would tell me all sorts of things, because some kids don't have any filter. And they can be very cruel, but also very sincere sometimes. And they would tell me all sorts of stuff. And I was afraid to go in front. I'm an adult already, right? And I'm afraid to be wearing this turban passing in front of the school. And so during those 10 years and listening to a lot of criticism and things from the outside, it was a way to stop caring so much what other people say, what other people think. I'm not doing this video to try to get approval from you whether I can wear a turban or not. I'm sharing my experience, but part of the learning that I had from wearing the turban was actually to not care so much whether people think it's good or not, or appropriate or not appropriate, or whatever they think it is. It would be also during the period of the Gulf War and, Osama bin Laden and all that. So I would be called a lot of stuff. Because the turban, most people don't know about Sikhs, even, especially in Spain. Sikh religion is very foreign to Spain, and they would think it's a Muslim turban. So most people would think I was Muslim. Anyway, throughout these years, one of the most important benefits I received is that I stopped feeling so much shame. And that's an incredible learning. Yeah, that's really powerful. That's very healing to say, I'm an adult. Come on. Why should I care what the other is, what they are saying? I don't even know them. Why are they saying that? Who cares? And I would have also some funny experiences. Like, there was a moment when some of my students were nurses, and they were going through a period, I don't think that's over, by the way, where nurses were in extreme stress in Spain. And they were between the patients and the doctors, so right in between, and they were experiencing a lot of stress. So I had quite a few nurses in my class, and eventually they invited me to go to teach in a hospital. And so I started going to the hospital and teaching, and nurses and doctors would come. And I remember one day coming out of the hospital, and in the street, there was this older woman who stops me and is like, oh my God, what happened to you? Oh my God, what happened to you? Did you have an accident? What's going with your head? What's wrong with your head? And I'm like, oh no, it's okay. I'm okay. I'm coming out of the hospital, but this is not it's not bandages. It's fine. It's just I'm wearing a turban. And she's like, a turban? Yes, I'm doing yoga. In India, they wear turbans. And you're like, oh, yeah, I just like to wear it like that. Oh, good. Of course you do. Well done. Yes, wear a turban if you like, for sure. My God, I thought you had suffered an accident. It was like amazing. So this old lady was so concerned. And that was quite a funny encounter. But anyway, so a lot of benefits for wearing the turban. Now, my tension with it. Now, when I teach Kundalini Yoga, I wear it. Yeah, I know it's not compulsory, but I definitely feel the benefits, and I will wear it because it's helpful to teach. And I will encourage Kundalini Yoga teachers to wear it as well. Definitely, I enjoy the benefits. But at the same time, I don't want to be tied up to that image, especially when I'm not teaching Kundalini Yoga. And so here we come to these YouTube videos, yeah? And this is the place where I experiment with what I want to share with the world. And I've been sharing teachings from all over, different kinds of yogas, not just from Kundalini. Actually, strictly from Kundalini, I taught very little compared with many videos that I've done. Like, for example, I'm teaching about Yoga Sutras, not necessarily our Kundalini Yoga understanding of the Yoga Sutras, but just Yoga Sutras in general. So I wouldn't need to wear the turban. And indeed, I don't need to wear, and I don't intend to wear it all the time. It's just that when I started by doing videos from Kundalini Yoga, and then it was hard to stop. You know, when you start creating an image, and then it's hard to stop changing that image. But the truth is, I don't feel that represents my true self, the turban. So I mentioned before I would talk about the experiment that I did. As you can see, very personal, very personal video today, sharing a lot about my experience. But I was feeling so much pressure about wearing a turban, and many of my friends became sick and they took vows. Those who I have invited already in the channel, from Ardaas Singh and Kirpal Singh. Well, Ardaas, I'm not sure. I don't think he took vows actually, but Kirpal Singh and my sister Seva Kaur and many people from around my community, they took vows and they became Sikhs and Sikh ministers. And so I said, well, you know, I really have a big resistance towards religion, even though I understand that the benefits of religion are the same and the objective is the same as yoga. But okay, I'm going to try it. So for 40 days, I wore a turban as if I was a Sikh. So I carried on the Sikh discipline and the Sikh way of life. I wasn't doing the 5 prayers, but I was doing everything else. And I followed, especially about the turban, 40 days of turban in all situations and circumstances. And after 40 days, well, I realized that that's not my thing. That's not who I want to be. That's not who I am. That's not part of my essence. And I feel, in my heart, I feel more carefree, more kind of Ramana Maharshi, like, okay, are we going to teach Kundalini Yoga? You prefer the turban, I'm going to put it on. And I enjoy the benefits. But naturally, when I'm at home, I don't wear a turban. And when I go in the streets, I don't wear the turban. If you see me in the street, you will not see me with a turban, unless I'm teaching. I'm going to a class or something. So if my idea, and also inspired by the Yoga Sutras, is talking about the Purusha and going back to its true nature. If my idea is that we should be as coherent as possible when we are teaching as when we are not teaching, well then, why am I not capable of just presenting myself as who I am? And yes, I'm capable of doing it. So my intention is that I'm not always going to be wearing the turban. And so that's my news, basically. I also want to explore coming out of this environment. I'm not sure how to do it. I have to figure out the technology to do this for next year. This is one of my things that I'm planning, to go outside and do some live streams from the outside, from nature, because we encourage people to go to nature. And I'm not sure about the technology of it. How do I have to, take care of the microphone and so on? But I have to figure it out. And I would love to go out more into nature. So that's something that I'm exploring. Anyway, I shared why I have some resistance with the turbans. I have overcome my fear of how do I look with the turban or without the turban. I can enjoy the benefits of it, but I want to be able to present myself also the way I am without the need to wear a turban. I recommend anyone to have an experience for it. And so, how about I show you how to do the turban? Because if you want to make an experiment, that's the best way. Now, in the manual of Kundalini Yoga, they say it is highly recommended to use a head cover. Even it doesn't even say turban, but head cover doesn't. You don't feel the difference so much from wearing the head cover or not. There is a little bit of difference, but the maximum effect is when you wear a turban. So let me explain how to do the turban. Now, the first thing is about the hair, and this is something that it took me a long time to learn. Actually, my hair is naturally a little bit like black people's hair, and I remember once meeting a friend of mine, Ram Singh, and he saw my hair. He said, "Well, you need to tie your hair better before doing the turban." And he gave me the clue of how to tie it, and the difference from before to after was huge. It was really hard before. So now I just washed it, which is another reason why, today I didn't want to put it in the turban because it's just washed. It's a little bit wet still. But when I was tying the hair, I didn't tie it properly. And this is important, that when you collect it, and you collect it, again, I'm collecting it a little bit towards the back, but ideally it should be more towards the front. And it has to be very tight, especially if you have a high volume of hair. I do. So it has to be tied, quite tight, because otherwise it will create pressure on the layers of cloth and it will be harder to tie. So I'm doing like a little whirlpool and then I'm coiling it. And it's a metaphor of the Kundalini. So the snake is coiled in the base of our spine, and the hair is coiled in the top of your head. And one is going to call the other. Yeah, so the hair is going to call the Kundalini to rise. On the turban, you can buy turban cloth. Let me see if I can show you. Let's see. It's a very, very thin cloth, and you see, I fold it. I fold it to make it double, but even the original cloth is actually twice this width. So this is half of the size of when you buy a turban cloth from India. Well, there is different sizes, but the common one that you can find is often double this size. So I cut it through the middle and then I fold it because I like it quite thin in this sense. Yeah. So this is one of the extremes. And how long should it be? Well, ideally from 3 to 5 meters. Now I took here one that is a little bit shorter today. Is a bit shorter than 5 meters. I mean, normally I use 5 meters, but I brought one that is a bit shorter, so it'll be a bit quicker to put it on, because today I don't want to be here for a long time doing this. Now, in one of the ends, okay, by the way, there's many ways to tie the turban, okay? I'm not gonna say my way is better than others, not at all. Everyone has to find their own. I'm just gonna share the one that it worked for me. I learned this one from an Indian fellow, but it diverges a little bit from the traditional Kundalini yoga style. That's why maybe you see it and you're like, is that Sikh or not? I'm not 100% sure. And also there are many different ways of putting the turban on. Some people will start from here and then going around. I'm gonna use one method that really works for me and why it works for me, but feel free to explore different methods. Also, the male and the female kind of turban can vary significantly. So check if it works. So you buy your cloth. If you need, you cut it along and you fold it and you wash it one time, because sometimes it comes with something that they put on the cloth that makes it more shiny and harder. So you cannot work with it without having washed it first. Always wash it first, otherwise it's not going to work for the first time. And then I felt it through the middle, and then I took the ends of one end, this end. The other end is not, but this end, and I make a knot. I make a knot here. Now this knot is very important, and it's going to hold in place the turban, and I put it in the base of my skull. If you touch the skull with your hand, there's a moment when you will find like a protuberance, I think it's called, and then it goes inside, like a hole. Above the hole, there's this little bone, lingam nucal, I think it's called in Spanish. And this little bone here, this is sometimes called the witch's eye, or the fifth eye. You may have heard about the third eye. This is like the fifth eye. And if you develop this point, you can go towards that space. There's a number of meditations from Kundalini where you go here and you look forward, or you look backwards from there. When you go into that space, you can have like extra sensory perception. You can see auras and things like that, much easier. So this is a mystical point. Sometimes it would be called the witch's point. And so I know some mediums and people who read your cards, who read tarot cards or something, they read the crystal ball or something like that, they will stimulate that point, or they will go into that point, and they will look at what's happening from that space. So that's a mystical space. And to me, the meaning is that if you draw a line from this to the third eye, that line, and you make the cross section through your temples, that's the point where the pituitary gland is sitting. So this point and this point, they are like a line of alignment that the pituitary sits right on top. So it's a very significant point, but it's more like a mystical thing. But anyway, physically, because there is the bone of the cranium finishing there, there is a little hole, and you can put the bone, the knot in the hole, and it's going to stay in place. So what I do with this is I'm actually going to remove the shawl for a moment. Hopefully I'm not getting away from the microphone too much, that you can still hear me. So I open the cloth, and so you can see it's folded, but I open the bit where is the knot, and I put it on this hole in the head. And I have to lean down with the head and keep pressure to make sure that it is tight. This is tight like that. So the bone is holding the knot, and this is the cloth is coming like this. If I want to, I can put the hair inside. You may need to adjust the hair that is inside. This hair that is tied here, you may need to adjust it, but make sure that the knot does not come out from here. And then this is the most important bit, and it's not easy. It takes time to learn, but with these indications, you can just copy me and try. You have to join the two ends and create the cross. Create the cross. So it's like this. With my left thumb, I'm struggling with the microphone. I hold it here, I hold it in the cross, and then I lean to the right to make sure that the cloth is falling on the right, and I hold with my thumb, and I don't move my thumb while I'm pulling away from the cloth, and I'm creating the first layer. So that's my base layer. Then I hold it, I pass the cloth over the top, and I stretch, and then I don't worry too much about this, the shape here. This is not important. The important thing is that you are drawing the first cross like that. And the moment that the cloth, very, very tight, you see I'm pulling quite tight, the moment that it crosses then basically you can let go now, because now it's going to stay tight. And now I align it, and I'm going to do the second round. And when I go for the back, I'm going to show you. Hopefully you can see. So the cloth always goes above the knot. The cloth goes above the knot and around. And then I hold the cloth and I do the second layer. Now, here there is a matter of style. You can choose to do one layer up, one layer down, one layer up, one layer down, and you will have the turban that is like a lot of little crisscrosses that go in drawing this arrow. But I do the arrow, this pointy thing, only once, and then I just go around in circles. So I only draw the first time, and now I go around over the knot. I make sure I'm pulling tight. Sorry. I make sure that it is flat, and I cover a little bit higher than where we were. And then I go around again over the knot. And this is why I chose today to use a 3-meter turban rather than a 5-meter turban, because you see I'm going to be here for a while doing many layers. That's why I wanted to do a few less today, so it takes a bit less time. But let me go a bit quicker. Once you have it in place, it's not going to come out now. It's quite stable. So now you can be a bit faster. But every time I go a little bit higher in the front. So you see the lines every time they go a bit higher, and a bit lower in the back. So every layer of cloth is holding all the others tight in place. So it's going to be a very, very stable turban. It would be difficult, unusual for this turban to come off even after doing asanas. We say we measure the how well you tie the turban if it's still on after sadhana, because when we do a kriya, we do all sorts of movement with the head, and sometimes turbans come off. So this is a tight turban. And the very end, I just grab the little bit at the end and I put it inside. Now this is just a purely white turban. I don't like absolute whiteness. I like to put it a touch of color, and I choose the color according to the topic that I'm teaching on the day, or the energy of the day according to the numbers, or the chakra that it needs to be more active. So if I'm teaching, blue is a very common one because it stimulates the 5th chakra. But if I am doing sometimes a very long meditation, like 2 hours and a half, in order to stay grounded, I will sometimes wear red. So I have a good number of different cloths of different colors, and I just cover the top of the hair. And this is, I haven't seen anyone doing this apart from myself. Well, actually, I'm lying. I saw a Mexican yogi who did this, and that's where I copied the idea, now that I remember. But most people don't do it. Most people just use the cloth and leave it white as it is. But I do it for a number of reasons. One is I like the color, and it has very good effects, positive things that is going to help. But also to protect the turban. Many times when I've been teaching in retreats and we go for walks and we go under the trees, I'm really tall and I tend to go hitting with the head on the trees, and the cloth is so thin, and up here there's only one layer. Here there's many, but on top there's only one. And so one branch will hit it and it will break. And I have many broken turbans from that. So this is actually very, very practical for me to protect it. Now I've covered with the cloth with the color, and then I take the remaining on top and I fold it in like this. You see? Here it is. There is a turban. I choose the appropriate shawl and with the color of the chakra that you're stimulating. And that's how you tie the turban. I was fortunate to have it reasonably well. And now I've done it in a few minutes, but it used to take me so long and it would look so much worse than this. So I hope that this little tip on how to put on a turban was helpful if you want to try it. And I encourage you to try it. It has a lot of benefits and it's very interesting to always experiment with ourselves. And anyway, I don't know, next video, will I wear a turban or not? I'm not sure, but you will certainly see me more times without turban now. But for today, I think it was useful to explore and to talk about this, the tradition of the turban, how to wear it, benefits, and everybody has to figure out what you want to do with it. But that's all from me for now. Thank you very much. If you want to know more about the long hair, watch the other video on the magnetic radiance of long hair. And I will put it here in a moment in the screen so you can click if you want to watch that one. Thank you very much. Satnam.